Everybody, take a deep breath with me. Good, because we made it. Finals week. And you know what that means? We could all use a vacation. This time last year, I was getting ready to do my semester abroad in Costa Rica. The only thing that I can think about every time I walk out into the snow is that this time last year, I was in the sun. And as I'm especially reminded of that when I'm walking to and from class and 3 inches of snow builds up on my head. But I'm pretty sure I'm not alone with this desire. 90% of holiday tourists travel to warm coastal climates this time of year. A beautiful beach resort on the coast of some southern tropical country seems ideal, getting pampered all day long. The waves in the background and the exotic species and birds and the pretty flowers that people wear in there. Or maybe you're more of an adventure tourist, tired of the same old gray drab, eager to find the exotic species and magical places, covered by a myriad of otherwise unimaginable colors that make this location such like an ideal travel spot. If you're that kind of traveler, the first thing on your list is probably snorkeling or scuba diving, and let me tell you, Costa Rica had it all. With a $1.92 billion a year tourism industry, Costa Rica stands as the most visited nation in the Central American region. With 1.9 million foreign visitors in 2007 alone. This means that Costa Rica has reached the highest rate of foreign tourists per capita anywhere. It's at 0.46. That's nearly 1 in 2. One of the highest in the Caribbean basin, and it's way higher than other popular destinations like Mexico and the Dominican Republic, even Brazil. Globally, tourism and related economic activities generate 11% of the global domestic product, or GDP, employ 200 million people, and transport nearly 700 million international travelers per year. These figures are expected to double by 2020, which, considering we're almost 2014, is just 6 years away. And these numbers are expected to rise particularly in some of the world's least developed countries because they tend to be the most biodiverse. Perhaps this is because biodiversity is vital to tourism. It is the attraction that drives the industry. Whether you're a thrill seeker or a beach bum, biodiversity is elusive to you, whether you realize it or not. Either way, it seems that Costa Rican tourism industry is expected to rise to about $4 billion a year, or potentially even higher when we consider the amount of biodiversity in the area. Think about it for a second. Costa Rica is 13 times smaller than Texas. That means you could fit 13 Costa Ricas inside of Texas and still have a little bit of wiggle room. But it has 5% of the world's biodiversity housed in that small area. When you're in Costa Rica, you can see the sunrise on the Caribbean coast and watch it set in the Pacific. With a simple ride across the country, you can do it in one day. There's no doubt that one can experience a plethora of different tourism activities when you have a country that you can just get so much out of. There's no doubt that at some point you'll be doing something or seeing something that you've never seen before. In an environment as earthly as this one, it's easy to believe that Costa Rica is a backpacker's game. Yeah. Other than a few business class hotels in the capital of San Jose, a landlocked conference center, and a handful of isolated luxury businesses scattered about the scenic heatherlands, travelers really don't expect a lot in the way of genuine comfort. While exploring Costa Rica, I stayed in a few hostels and even hammock hostels, which are exactly what they sound like. You pay money to sleep in a hammock. Sounds really cool, but when you go to bed at night, or when you go to your hammock in the middle of the night without a blanket or tent, it can be kind of freezing, and you have no control over that ocean breeze. However, over the past decade, Costa Rica's fastest growing crop has been hotels, resort communities, marinas, golf courses, gourmet restaurants, hot springs, and other world-class amazing facilities. Granted, each of these is normally tagged with something like Eco Lodge or Eco Resort, which may conjure up visions of dreadlocks, granola, and recycled hemp fibers. which can be found in the country, but don't be fooled. These high-class hotels are the epitome of elegance. Considering that tourism is expected to continue to grow, we can only assume that travelers' accommodations will continue to spring up throughout this developing third world nation. But I have to wonder, how eco could development really be? Coastal tourism has been the least impacted area of tourism by the ecotourism movement. And by that I mean that it has the least popular demand to change its development techniques and business operations, which, when we match up with the fact that 80% of tourists choose to visit these areas, and that these areas tend to be the most ecologically diverse across the globe, it seems a little ironic and maybe even a little dangerous. In a small country jam-packed with biodiversity like Costa Rica, I have to wonder how sacrificing land space that's home to fauna and creatures could be done in an environmentally friendly way. Once the buildings are constructed, they operate with minimal environmental impacts using biodigesters, solar panels, biodegradable soaps, local foods. Hell, they've even eliminated planned obsolescence in every aspect of the business. And when I mean every, I mean every. They use reusable straws. But regardless, building on beaches and other areas is not only a habitat destroyer, but it puts the land and nearby communities at risk. Soil erosion, coupled with mangrove destruction, affect the ability of the coast to defend itself from the ocean during natural disasters like hurricanes and tsunamis, making the effect of such natural disasters even more detrimental than they would have been if the coast was able to act as the first line of defense. In order to supplement the destruction or rebuild, you must bring in the same species that was originally moved in the first place. The Costa Rican government learned this the hard way. I know that I've mentioned that Costa Rica is the most eco-conscious country on the planet, but it wasn't always. There was a time when Costa Rica was known for massive amounts of deforestation, and it wasn't too long ago. Let me explain to you by showing you a little Costa Rican striptease. You see, as you can see here, in the 1970s, the country used to have expansive, lush forests. This is also the time when the demand for a special kind of oak that was available in many Costa Rican rainforests became popular. So the deforestation, or stripping if you will, began. It was not until the 90s that most of the coverage had vanished from the country's landscape, and certain species were beginning to become endangered. During the movement for an environmentally conscious country, which they're still working on, by the way, as they plan to be carbon neutral by 2020, but that's besides the point, the government began restoration projects. But they brought beautiful and possibly less expensive alien species of trees into the areas. As a result, the inhabitants of those areas, or the endangered species of the forest, did not return. After the discovery of the need for a certain type of tree to appease the ecosystem, the government had to reinvest in reforestation, if you will. And this time with native species of the planet. This is especially important for the restoration of mangroves and soil erosion, because it will put these areas at specific risk. Ritzy high-class resorts must be aware of this and abide by these non-mandated but environmentally friendly rules if tourism in those places is going to continue to sustain itself. If you destroy the biodiversity of the area will lose its appeal to the tourists in the first place, that travel there in the first place. On the Pacific coast of Costa Rica, in the province of Guanacaste, huge resorts have been built in the city of Tamarindo that have caused me and the friends I studied abroad with to call it Little America. Everything is in English, and the national parks are not as big a part of the culture that they are in the smaller, less resort-ridden locations. And this area of the country is where all the celebrities from the United States move into, and most luxury homes can be found. The biodiversity attraction in these areas can be found in the neighboring beaches of Tamarindo, like Las Baulas National Marine Park, known for its nesting sea turtles. Luckily, these national parks have remained pristine because of the legal protections provided to them by the government. And I say thankfully, because these beach resort areas tend to be detrimental for the young turtle population. In other coastal areas globally, resorts on the coastline have been mistaken as moonlight by young turtles. When turtles hatch in the night, they instinctively follow the moonlight to find the ocean. sea turtles are experiencing an increase in infant mortality rates. If tourism in the country continues to rise and expand across, officials will have to find a way to cope with light population that could significantly alter the ecosystem. If more baby turtles head up the beach because they are mistaken the lights emanating from the hotels for the moonlight on the ocean, they are at a higher risk of being preyed upon and are less likely to survive. We are all aware of how disruptions in one part of the food chain could alter the entirety of our ecosystem. Another concern is for the reality of our ability to keep these areas pristine. With demand for tourism expected to double in the next 6 years, countries like Costa Rica will go from dealing with 1.9 million foreign tourists to 3.8 million foreign tourists, which is almost the same as the population of the country year-round. And most of them will be coming in just 4-month peak tourism season. So to meet the demand for these accommodations must be made really quickly. And I kind of fear a little bit that environmental consciousness may take a backseat to business profit. Not to mention the stress on resources during that 4-month peak season time. It seems to me that greed is kind of inherent in nearly every person and every culture in the world, and that may be a little bit pessimistic, but history shows me that's kind of right. Money and power are the driving force in decision-making almost always. But for the purpose of this talk, I'll bring up an issue of ecotourism in the area of Guanacaste I mentioned earlier. I describe the town of Tamarindo as a rich tourist hotspot, but the rest of the province is the most sparsely populated area in the country. And the population of full-time residents is in the decline, as younger people are making their way to the more populated capital city of San Jose in search of work and better lives. But to get from Guanacaste to San Jose is a full trip, a full day trip. Even though the country is so small, you have to think that you'll have to go all the way around the hook of the country because no bridge existed between over this river, which we'll call the Tempisque River. You either have to take the ferry across the Tempisque River, which only operates for a limited time each day, or you have to take the long bus ride around the country. And well, to say it kind of nicely, not the most stable or level or even smooth roads. Hell, I don't even know if you can call them roads. But because of the sparseness of the population in this region, the area has been completely preserved. Its natural beauty and its environment look the same as they did 40, 50, 60 years ago. As a result, it's become home to some of Costa Rica's most important national parks and reserves. Most notably is la Área de Conservación Tempisque, known as ACT, or the Tempisque Conservation Area, which is made of 3 national parks containing 15 different habitats, of course including coastal, making it the place of greatest ecological diversity in the entire world. In this area alone, there are 279 species of birds, and it's even home to an endangered species, Giraffe myotarsiae, shown here, which is pretty close to extinction. Because of its national parks, which include volcanoes and caverns and beautiful Pacific beaches and dry climate, Guanacaste has become one of the preferred sites in Central America for national and international tourism and ecotourism. The residents of the Nicoya Peninsula have long been intrigued by the possibility of building a bridge over the mouth of the Tempisque River at the top of the Gulf of Nicoya to provide more direct access to the San Jose area. The bridge would connect the road to the lowlands of the eastern bank, which, though of poor quality, connects with the Pan-American Highway near San Jose. This would not only better serve the residents of the community, but this would also make the travelers' commute from the international airport located in San Jose much less exhausting, and they would be able to start their vacationing even quicker and waste less daytime. The benefits of this new bridge were estimated as savings in travel time and vehicle operating costs it offered to users, plus a reduction in ferry operating and capital costs. But as occurs with most plans for structural change, debate erupted. One argument was that the design for the ferry system could be improved to increase efficiency, kind of satisfying the needs of everyone. But the people of the area didn't buy it. They knew of the realities and the inconvenience and unreliability of this ferry system. Strong environmental objections were predicted, given the most Costa Ricans are very aware and proud of the importance of the Tempisque Conservation Area. The indigenous people know that the rare trees, animals, fish, and birds that are native to Costa Rica survive practically only in the country's national parks and reserves, particularly in the ACT. In the cities, campaigns to protect the ACT were run almost every year, and the most recent even got international and national foundations to get behind them. Environmentalists were concerned that the construction of the bridge would cause a major impact, even if it carried no traffic. There would be noise pollution and habitat destruction. The bridge would cut right through the mangrove. Influential members of the tourist industry also opposed the bridge, arguing that the tourism industry had a stake in preserving the environment, since most of the visitors to the ACT were attracted to its pristine state. But according to tourism businesswoman Maria Castillo, ecological tourism is what allowed Costa Rica to attract tourists in such high volumes with big money. They calculated that there was probably losses due to this project, and it was obviously an unsound plan. Some 14,000 foreign tourists a year come to this area. Close to 70% visit Tempisque on a guided boat tour, and this generates more than $5 million in cash, without counting what's spent on hotels and meals and taxes and travel, etc. And this is in US dollars. This is not in any other form of money. But, of course, other experts testified that the amount of revenue created by ecotourism does not compare to the amount obtained through regular mass tourism. So what do you think they did? Regardless of all those eco-warning against the bridge, it was built, with the intent to accommodate the people of the area and the tourists, not eco-tourists, who just wanted to get straight to the coast. But the thing is, cars are a luxury in Costa Rica. There is 100% import tax on cars, so only the rich of the rich are the ones who are driving around. And the rich of the rich do not really live in the Nicoya Peninsula, unless they're those rich US tourists I mentioned earlier. Also, a small airport was built in the Guanacaste province, which tourists can use to travel with great speed from the Center City Airport in San Jose. So, after all the debate, after millions of dollars were invested, and after many years were invested into the construction of the bridge, what happened? Well, turns out it's not highly used at all. It has not become a useful addition to the quality of life or the tourist experience in Costa Rica, but rather threatens and continues to threaten the most protected and reserved area of Costa Rica. In the building of the bridge, there was a lot of government debate and policy, as it was paid for by Taiwan in the attempt to buy votes in a particular international policy meeting, proving again that greed runs the world, and a world is the environment, so it doesn't make sense. If even the most eco-conscious country in the world is willing to subject itself to the greed of other countries and the desire for mass tourism, what hope is there? The hope lies in the other coast. I'd like to direct your attention to the Caribbean coast of Costa Rica. This was my preferred side of Costa Rica and my favorite place in the world, especially Carvita National Park. The most locally populated area of this country is not exactly known for its 5-star hotels, but known for its amazing biodiversity and the true connection with the land. It is this area of Costa Rica where backpackers tourism is still dominant. When I had my trip, I got to go to the indigenous Bribri community in Talamanca, which was a really amazing experience. The Bribri community still operates in conjunction with the land as opposed to using the land for economic gain, but somehow they still managed to turn a profit using ecotourism. But they only allow a minimal amount of tourists to come in so that they don't overpower the area or destroy the environment that is providing this for them in the first place. When I was in Costa Rica, the only reason I was allowed to stay in the bravery community was because the director of our program had set us up with this visit almost a year in advance. When we stayed there, we didn't have electricity. We slept with mosquito nets because we didn't have windows and they could get in easily. And you want to know what? It might have been uncomfortable for some, but even the most materialistic of girls on the trip said it was a life-changing experience. I have never ever felt more aware or more connected to the world around me. It was a totally different eco-tourist, enriching experience. This model is not copied because it puts a limit on profit growth. When continuing to explore the Caribbean coast, there's just such a much more different atmosphere. They wanted to save the world while sharing their worlds. They didn't even allow for the flushing of toilet paper because it would affect this unique system of biodigesters that convert waste into energy, even human waste. I know it sounds kind of gross, but it doesn't smell, and seeing the whole process is kind of cool. It's a little difficult to explain, though. This real ecotourism that exists there has people are just happy. They want to show you what's so special about where they are. In this area of their country, no one is eager to take up a piece of coral and bring it home with them. They know that they have to leave it where it belongs so that they could benefit from it, its beauty, and all others could be able to see its beauty, and where the different species of marine life could call home, and the world in its totality could just be at peace. This place is where people take nothing but pictures and leave nothing but footprints. The trick is to figure out how we can find a balance between the majority of foreign tourists who crave luxury and the minority who truly love real ecotourism and don't mind sleeping in a hammock with a mosquito net. I don't have all the answers, but I do know that devastation in the form of the environment, in the form of hopelessness, will overcome the Caribbean coast if we allow our desire for greed and ecotourism profits to overcome us. The reason to travel should be more than a desire to be warm in a little America in a different country. It should be to see the other country, to see the amazingness that the world has to offer us. I can't make other people feel that way. It's something that I had to learn, but everybody needs to learn it. So in every single debate, I will stand for the environment regardless of money. For every debate, I will stand on the Caribbean coast. And for every debate, I will stand for beauty and hope and love. But will you stand with me? Thank you.